all in all, it's pretty strong news for the economy.
It is incredibly strong. I think you got to look at it several ways. Without Victoria, it would have been more likely about 1.7%. Victoria added that big kick because they were coming out of their coronavirus restrictions. You also have to look at where it came from. Household spending is realistically the major part of it. Now, consumption is always about 55 to 60% of our GDP, but household spending was incredibly strong. It could possibly go to your story before also around, where that money is going, because services were part of it, and part of those services are professional and gambling services. It's also the amount of people that bought a new car and used cars. It's an incredible figure to actually see that jump. It was over 16% in terms of the area around motoring was a big part of that 3.1%. But you're right, overall, it's incredibly strong because it wasn't just the consumer side. You actually saw business services having a very, very good quarter. And it is services, not manufacturing and exports, which have been a really decent driver during the coronavirus issues that we had from basically April through to September. Services were starting to come back, and it was professional services. It was education came back online as well. So that was also a pleasant thing. But you're right, it's an incredible figure, and it means the 2 quarters, and I know that the Treasurer is certainly shouting this from the rooftops at the moment, was the best since on record in terms of those 2 quarters of growth to actually see that kind of movement. Yeah. We're out only 1.1% down from where we were. We are, in the developed world, along with Japan, the best performing developed economies on the planet. The next one outside of that is South Korea. They're down 1.4%. Everything else is still down over 3% or more.
Well, and it might have been even better, Evan, because that also included the Northern Beaches shutdown over the Christmas period. So we may well even be in a stronger position. And I wonder how this looks going forward.
Yeah, and you're right. So the question, and that's a perfect point. So unfortunately, you always have to wait 65 days after the close of a quarter to get a GDP. So we have to wait till June to get the next one. About June 2nd is when the first quarter of this year is done, because your point around the Northern Beaches actually stems through into what happened in January. January's retail sales will have come out, and February retail sales are out today. They were mixed. And that is, we had Northern Beaches issues in Sydney, but then we also had the snap lockdown over in Western Australia with Perth. You then had the snap lockdown here in Victoria. You had the same thing up in Brisbane going along with their snap lockdowns that happened at the back end of Christmas, New Year's period, which is a big retail consumption period. So it will be interesting to see what the first quarter brings, because we know the animal spirits is back. We know what's going on in housing at the moment and what's going on in February. People's confidence is returning, but there has been interruptions, and we will probably therefore maybe not get as good a jump as we could have in the first quarter, which was really gathering momentum from that last quarter going through because of those lockdowns. And it's what everybody's saying. If we can keep the borders open, the economy will grow. If we see the borders shut, we will have the issues that we had all through last year.
I guess when things continue to go as well as they are, Evan, we come to the inevitable question, and it's already started to emerge about the next potential rate rise. Now, the RBA had said that it would be years away, maybe 2023, 2024. I've spoken to Peter Switzer about this. He says that was always a long way off in his view. He always thought it would be around 18 months. But the better the economy does, do you think that strengthens the argument to perhaps pull things back a little bit and perhaps have a rate rise earlier? What's your money on?
Okay, so my money is on the rate rise is 2024. The reason I say that's what the RBA is. Yeah, the reason I say that is the RBA. Don't forget, when we say a rate rise, that's the RBA controlling the cash rate. It doesn't mean that current rates, as in the bond market, can actually move. Now, why I highlight that, and the other reason I say that is that don't forget, part of the biggest problem that we had before the whole pandemic happened is that the RBA's mandate is to have inflation between 2 and 3%. Taking out the pandemic, we hadn't seen inflation between 2 and 3% since the third quarter of 2015. So we weren't getting inflation. And the reason for that was wages. Wages are incredibly anemic, and that hasn't changed and isn't changing. We have incredible slack in the employment market. So I'm of that. What I am watching, and getting back to your question, is that they are controlling the 3-year bond at 0.1 of 1%. There is 2 bonds that are actually up for 3 years in 2024. One's in April and one's in November. The interesting thing about that, and this is where my answer comes to it, is that the one in April is at 0.1 but the one in November is actually sitting at 0.35. That's a 25 basis point notch. So that is where the market thinks the first rate rise is coming. So that's my answer, is that they think it will definitely happen in 2024 and it will be a 25 basis point rise. But that until then, I don't think they will.
Okay. Yes or no answer here, Evan. You got any Bitcoin yet?
No.
Okay, good to talk. We're out of time. We'll talk a bit more about that next week. Evan, thanks. Talk to you soon.